All right, we're on the air.
Hello.
Priscilla, we're on the air.
Oh, we are?
Yep, sit up straight.
Well, you could have given me a little more notice.
Okay.
This is Priscilla to my left and Kathy to my right.
Hello.
He knows his left and his right.
Hello, I'm Priscilla Hensley. We're interviewing Grandma and Grandpa,
Or Mom and Dad.
what?
Or Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad. However it applies to you. So first of all, I'd like you guys to introduce yourself. We'll start with Dad first and then Mom.
Okay, I'm John Joseph Hansen. I was born May 24th, 1949. I recently celebrated my 72nd birthday. For all you grandkids are just so excited to hear how old I am. And I was born in Portland, Multnomah County, Oregon.
And I'm Catherine Miller Hansen. Actually, when I left the hospital, they were going to name me K-A-Y, and then they decided to change my name to Catherine. My dad used to call me Katrinka when I was growing up, but mostly I go by Kathy.
I
Born-
didn't,
What?
I didn't know that. That's why you go by Katrinka for music.
Yes,
Good to know.
yes. And I was born in Mesa, Maricopa, Arizona.
Awesome. Dad may have already answered this, but what number child were you?
Well, I didn't. I was the second of four kids.
4 and Mom?
Third of 7.
Okay. Awesome.
Oh, you know what? I just realized I forgot to start recording also.
You forgot to
So
start
back up.
recording.
We will fill it in.
Yeah, that's true. Okay,
Wait.
that's good. You're good. Keep going.
What is your first memory as a child?
Well, I take you're asking me first. I remember, mostly I remember Klamath Falls, Oregon. Klamath Falls is in the south central section of Oregon, just south of Crater Lake. We moved there when I was probably less than, I was probably about a year old.
Wow.
And my sister Lisa was born in Klamath Falls. There's only two kind of distinct memories I have. One, we had a front porch on the house without rails on the sides of everything. I remember as a little kid going out there during the winter time. My mom had me all bundled up to go out and play in the snow. I'd walk to the edge of that porch and I'd just fall face first down into that snow. Just like a spread eagle, you know. And the second thing I remember is that I ran away from home there at the age of about 2.5 or so.
Wow.
And we went down and we had a large field across from this big pasture area from our house. I'd gone down across the road into that pasture area. Probably got far enough away I didn't know where I was or anything, and so I better turn around and go back and sort of find my way home. That's what I remember of it.
That's something that's very young memory.
I don't remember anything when I was that young. I do remember being I was on a float in a parade when I was probably 5 years old, 5 or 6. And I had on pantaloons. I was like Mary Had a Little Lamb. So, and mostly I remember playing with my sister because she was just a year younger than me. So, have
What
lots
was
of
your sister's name?
Margie is 1 year and 3 days younger than me.
Wow. Very close in age. What special quality do you remember about your mom?
My mom was a homemaker. I mean, she really was a domestic lady. She made clothes for all of the kids for quite a few years. I remember mostly about her making clothes for my sisters, Maylene and Lisa. But I got a few things out of it too, you know, some shirts occasionally. And then I really never knew my mom as a sports lady, you know, actively involved in sports herself. And but I remember she liked to make cinnamon rolls, fresh treats like that. When we got home from school, she would make those things, have them ready for us.
That sounds like a wonderful characteristic quality.
So my mom also was a homemaker. The only work she ever did was with my dad in his insurance office, or tax office, and she always had good food. She made great Mexican food, and we always had treats. I don't remember one thing particular. I do remember my grandma's because I had a grandma right behind us through the back fence, and I had a grandma who lived a block down the street to the front door, and I remember always having treats at their house. In fact, whenever we went to Mama Lou's house, we got candy. Whenever we went to Grandma's house, she would have something healthy for us.
Nuts or...
Yes.
I think I remember that too. The candy from Mama Lou. What was something she always said?
Well, I thought about that question a little bit as I was perusing them. I probably remember mostly probably the things when I would do something wrong. Go get the stick. She had a little piece of driftwood, kind of like a paddle, that she'd use on me occasionally, and to make sure I understood and heard her. So.
With my mom, it was go get the hairbrush. She had a wooden hairbrush that she'd paddle us with, but didn't get paddled very often because it hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember how she dressed?
Mostly she dressed with a dress on. House dress, we mostly refer to some of them now. Sometimes a house dress are kind of mistaken for a
Moo-moo.
well, either a moo-moo style or just a dusting dress, right? Where it'd be buttoned on top all the way down. Ladies back when I was growing up, ladies and girls didn't dress very casually. Always dressed a little more dressy. But the boys were always in Levi's and t-shirts. That was it. So.
What about you, Mom?
My mom always dressed, I don't remember her at home in anything else except probably a dress. I hardly ever saw her wearing pants. And she was very, very pretty. She was very pretty. She had a skinny waist, and she had curly blonde hair. So,
Wow. It would be nice to go back and see them at this time in their life.
yes.
That's why we like to have pictures.
And she wore bright red lipstick.
Awesome. Always lipstick. Okay, now let's talk about your dad. What special quality do you remember about your father?
My dad was a hard worker, from what I can always remember. He worked initially, or some of the kinds of jobs he held down is his mom and him and one of his brothers operated an ice cream store in Filer, Idaho. They used to work loading train cars in Glens Ferry, Idaho. They did all sorts of chores, farm activities. And then they were always doing things to help provide for themselves. Because he came from a family of 8. And so he had to, I mean, many times. His jobs were like $1 a day, you know, and so they didn't pay much, but so he had to work hard.
And my dad was mostly always self-employed too. I remember he had a service station. He was at that time he was, you know, the manager of the service stations. He was working for somebody else. He later on had an insurance business and a tax business. But when I was growing up, he mostly had an office down the corner, either the service station or the office that was down the corner, close on the same street as ours. So he was like three doors down from where my house was.
So to clarify, service station with a gas station?
Gas station.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just making sure.
Right.
different
And I know before
terminology.
that, when I was too young to remember, he used to go work out of town. He had quite a ways to drive to Queen Creek. And then one time he was trying to sell cars and he didn't like it because he was trying to talk people into buying something they couldn't afford. And he couldn't do that, so he didn't like it. But the thing I remember most about my dad is always working on something better. He's trying to get a degree. When I was in high school, or junior high, he started, he got into the insurance business because he studied to get the certification. I just remember him laying on the floor, watching TV, and having a book open, reading the book to study to get his insurance certificate.
I'm so surprised to hear that because I think that when we were growing up, you always said you can't have music playing and study at the same time. So now we know you can watch TV and study at the same time. That has not changed.
And sometimes he was sleeping at the same time.
Well, my dad later on, though, as the family grew, he got a job with Carnation Milk Company. Carnation didn't just make evaporated milk. They had lots of milk products, but included in that was feed for the cattle. So my dad was a feed salesman. He'd go out to big cattle ranches or cattle farms and dairies. And calling those people, he'd sell chickens, he'd sell, of course he wasn't selling chickens, he was selling baby chicks. And so he did that up in Portland area, as well as he did down in Klamath Falls. And then we moved back out to Warren and then over to Seaside. All those places he did feed sales. Now later on, he got a real estate license, sold real estate and insurance, sold cars out in Southern California, then opened his own real estate office.
Wow. Okay.
His main career was real estate.
I did not know that for some reason. What did your father do in their free time? And I'm sure they served in the church. So maybe you can talk about the two of those.
Well, my dad spent a lot of time in service to the church. He served as a bishop in St. Helens, Oregon. Later he served as a branch president in Seaside, Oregon. In Southern California, he was on the High Council of the Palomar State. And after that, it was pretty much either High Council or State Clerk, or Ward Clerk too.
And same with me, my dad, I don't ever remember him sitting by us at church, because he was always on the stand, either the counselor, and then later on after I was married, he was the bishop, but he was always a counselor to two different bishops that I could think of when I was growing up. And my mom was in the primary. She usually was a primary pianist.
At this point, we're going to take a commercial break. I want to get another drink of water, so we'll pause just for a moment here.
Okay.
Go right on ahead. So, did you guys go camping a lot? I mean, Because I know that when I was growing up camping, anytime we had a 3-day weekend, we were gone. So, so what was it like for you guys growing up?
We very seldom went on vacations. Yeah, vacations just were, it was, well, our vacation when we lived in Portland area was we would vacation over to my grandma and grandpa Joseph's beach house located in Oceanside, Oregon, down by Tillamook, Oregon. That to me was a great playhouse or play experience. I even developed some friendships because they lived in the Oceanside. And so we would do things along the beach. We talked about one of these things about an experience earning money as a child was when I would go out down to the beach and we would scavenge up, we'd collect brown bottled beer bottles and different sizes, and different sizes brought better money. And we also go out and collect the pop bottles too. There were no aluminum cans at that time. So it wasn't, pop bottles were 3 cents or a nickel depending upon the size. So I remember my biggest payday though was the day I went down after the 4th of July one year. And people would sit out on the rocks and on the sand in the beach areas. And I was out there, we would scurrying through the rocks and collecting these bottles out of everything. And I found a $20 bill.
Oh.
And I didn't have anybody to ask who it was, whose it was. So, it was mine.
Richest man in the world at that moment.
Yeah, kind of like what you felt like.
I used to sell snow cones. Of course, my mom had to help with the stuff to make snow cones. I'd sell snow cones on the corner because we lived by kind of a busy street. And but I wasn't doing it to make money for myself. I was trying to make money for the primary children's hospital. And so I remember 3 cents for, I think 3 cents or 5 cents depending on what size they were. And I remember one time going to primary and taking my $3.70 and how proud I was of that little bit of money. We put it in the hospital. There was a wooden hospital. It was like a bank, and you could put your money into it.
But that wasn't really the question.
Oh.
Was it?
What was the question?
The question was, what do we do for our fun time?
Yeah.
On the farm, we had a 5-acre farm up in Oregon, in Warren, which is just to the west side of Portland. And on this farm, we had about a ½ acre that was just in garden space, maybe a little bit more. And so we used to grow a wide variety. My mom would can those things up so we could have them to eat all year long. We had a big cherry tree, we had apple trees, grape arbors, hay fields, barns, a couple of cows, chickens, turkeys, and we always had a pig. We could always get a pig so we could slaughter it. We did our own slaughtering. And one of my saddest times in my life was when my dad said, well, it's time to slaughter your pig, John. And so he was out to get that pig, and that pig was just wheeling up a storm. I couldn't take it, so I ran all the way up into my bedroom at the house until I heard the pig quit squealing. And then I went down and helped him do the slaughtering on the pig.
Now, I did not grow up on a farm, but my grandpa, Ed Miller, I showed you that they lived through our back door. And in that back door were cow pastures. And on the one side was cows in pens. And I remember having milk that we get, but I was really, really young, so I don't remember it when I got older. By that time, he was changing it into housing in that area. But I do remember they had pecan trees right behind us, and so for Thanksgiving, the big thing was to get up in the pecan trees and shake the pecans so they could come down, and then they'd crack the pecans. Around Christmas time, we always had to get all the pecans down. We did have a plum tree in our backyard, and it grew so heavy with fruit that we had to put a piece of wood with, like make it into three prongs to help hold up the branches, because the fruit was so heavy. And when we finally got the plums ready, we'd go selling them around the neighborhood. It was 25 cents for a bag of plums.
Wow. So I think that the farmer life never really left Grandma and Grandpa Hansen, because I recall even in St. George, in their later years of life, they were always growing something.
Oh yeah.
Every time we went to go and visit them, they were growing something, and every time we went to Grandma and Grandpa Miller's house, they had fruit trees.
Well, fruit trees are easy, but it was hard to grow anything in a garden because it's so hot. I mean, really, really hot. It feels good to plant things in the spring, but then in the summertime it's just so hot, it just bakes. One thing I don't know if you remember, we had irrigation. And so when it was time for irrigation, you had to go out and open the gates, and so the whole yard would get irrigated. That was the only way we could even have grass, because they would bring in the irrigation and to keep the lawn growing.
But I always remember playing on the farm too. We would build hay forts out of bales of hay. So we got out there and with some of my friends, we got out and we'd build these forts out of hay bales, which meant that we'd stack a bale, and offset it, and kind of engineer it all up and make it, 2 stories tall maybe. Or we'd crawl around and fill out the tunnels that we made on the inside of these bales of hay.
Wow.
And at my house in the desert, we grew. Our huts were made out of tumbleweeds, and so we'd dig a little bit of a hole, and then try to cover it up with tumbleweeds so we could have a little cool spot with tumbleweeds as the covering.
I remember somebody telling me they thought tumbleweeds were just in cartoons until they
No.
moved out west, and then they saw real life tumbleweeds.
And here's another thing to remember. In the summertime, when it started getting monsoon season, the dust would come up. Of course, here's my house, and then we had dirt next to our house. I mean, it was undeveloped. And so the thing you had to do, because my mom always hung out the clothes, and so when it was getting ready for a storm to come, you had to go get the clothes off the clothesline. Otherwise, it would rain, and then the dirt that would blow would just make everything dirty again. So you had to wash it. So you had to hurry and get the clothes off the clothesline, and then we'd have this wonderful, wonderful rain that smells like dirt. I still love the smell of rain. Wet dirt.
Wonderful. Well, we've kind of talked about the outside of your home. So what about your home, actual home? Was it big? Was it small?
Well, we had an extremely vivid experience. We went on vacation one time. Our family did. And one of the places we stopped at was Warren, Oregon, and we looked at my farmhouse where it was where we grew up. Now, we only lived in that farmhouse for about 6 years. I had my own bedroom upstairs. My sisters shared a room principally. And this was of course, Peter and I are 10 years apart in age, and so he didn't come along until we were already out of Oregon, out of Warren. But that house, to me, I always thought of as being a large farmhouse. And when we went and looked at that house, just from the road, I stopped to just take pictures of it. It looked like just a small little farm cottage. It just didn't feel like it was very big at all. And same when we went to Seaside one time, we stopped in Seaside, Mom and I did, and we looked from the street at the house we lived in there. That one looked a little bit bigger, but not much.
And my growing up is very different because I lived in a house that my dad built, and he finished the house the day I was born, and then the day I came home from the hospital, we moved into the house. So can you imagine coming home with a new baby to a new house, having to get everything set up? That would be really hard. But anyway, it was 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. That was a big, big house back then. And I was the 3rd child. And then I remember living there long enough until we finally got, after we had 6 kids, when my mom was expecting number 7, they changed the living room into a bedroom. And then on the front porch, they added a bathroom, so that was our 2nd bathroom. But we were, you know, raising 5 girls with having to take a shower and curl your hair and all this stuff in 1 bathroom. So we didn't get our 2nd bathroom until Hiram was born, and that was 1965. I would have been 13 years old.
Wow.
The house we had in Southern California was about the biggest house I remember that my mom and dad had. It was 1,400 square feet, 4 bedrooms, and felt monstrous. It was on one level. It was a ranch style, no basement, just right down, everything was right there. And I remember that was probably the biggest house mom and dad had.
So you said you always had your own bedroom because you were a girl, boy, girl. So the girls slept together and you had your own bedroom. I always shared a bed with Margie. I don't ever remember sharing with Julianne. She was 3.5 years older than me. So Stan, Julianne, and me and Margie, we were so close. We always shared a bed, usually a double bed. And here's the funny thing. She wanted me to draw on her back to go to sleep. And I always drew first. And then by the time it was my turn, she was already asleep. So I never got her to scratch my back or draw on my back.
I don't remember really having been sharing a room. I'm sure we did, Peter and I. But with being a 10-year difference, it just didn't happen very long. I usually have my own room.
Let me tell you one more thing about girls getting ready to go to bed. You couldn't have there were no blow dryers. If you had a dryer, it was a big thing you put around your head with a hose that came out of it hooked to a machine, but it was more like the style you would see at a hair salon. But we would take a shower, wash our hair, and then curl our hair on these big rollers and sleep on it that way. Now, my hair is very thin. My sister Julianne would roll her hair, go to bed, get up in the morning, and it was still so damp she had to put on the hairdryer when she got up. And my hair is so thin that if I got dressed before I curled my hair, I had to wet my hair again because it dried out.
Now I had also other jobs as I grew up, because when I started about 10, we'd moved out to Seaside, Oregon. I started delivering newspapers. I remember crawling over people's fences in their side yards and stuff like that. If I dropped their paper, I'd drop over the fence to their back neighbor, deliver to deliver the papers on the next street. And then at that time, I also had a Saturday where I would walk out on the promenade, which was 14 feet wide, and it just was right down the edge of the beach. And I'd walk out. It was a mile from my north end of the prom down to the city center, and then another mile down to the other end of the prom to the south. I'd walk that whole prom a couple times every Saturday, selling newspapers for a quarter for the Sunday paper.
Wow.
And then after newspapers and stuff like that, I did newspapers until I was probably 16. And riding bikes and all sorts of different ways. And after that, I got a job as a truck driver and warehouseman for a food distributor. independent man, and I became a driver, delivery, and then eventually he helped me get a job in the restaurant industry.
Into the what industry?
Restaurant.
Oh, restaurant, okay.
I worked at a Denny's restaurant.
Now, did you have to wait till you were 16 to drive, to get a driver job?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, somebody has a question.
Okay, we have a question online from Carson.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
can
hello,
address-
Carson.
So you can address her directly to answer her question. She says, what was your favorite grade and subject in school, and who was your favorite teacher?
I think my favorite grade, of course, in the school I started at, we did not have a kindergarten. I think it would have been my favorite grade if we had been if it had been an option. Otherwise, I think of it as being probably my 4th grade class, Mrs. Martin. You see, we came from a school was 1st grade through 8th grade. And there's only about 5 or 6 classrooms in it. My favorite was 4th grade, I think, Mrs. Martin, because she had 2 real cute twin daughters. And so I always liked to play with them.
My favorite grade was 5th grade. It's most memorable because my neighbor was my teacher. She lived around the corner from me, and so she saw me growing up, she knew I could play the piano because I started when I was in 2nd grade. And then I got to 5th grade, and I was a talker. I talked a lot and probably caused problems in class, but because she knew I played the piano, she had an incentive program for me that if I finished my work, I could go up and take typing lessons. So she had a typewriter in the classroom, and this is before, you know, computers. Nobody really knew how to type. Usually till you got to 7th or 8th grade, you could take typing. But I started typing when I was in 5th grade, and because of my finger dexterity, I was good at it. And because I had something to do, I didn't bother other people with my jabber mouth.
Awesome.
So Carson, don't let that, you know, that Grandpa was really not a very good student. Don't let that bother you. You just plow ahead and study all you can. And then during the summers, you always have to be a reader. And that's one of the things we did every summer in our homes, Priscilla, is that we had reading clubs for every age-appropriate ones for our kids as you were growing up. And every time you would finish a goal, you had a reward. Well, you remember what the rewards were?
For what?
For
For
the
the
reading.
reading club.
You remember your reading club rewards? Sometimes you got to choose your own box of cereal.
Oh.
That was a big deal. You could choose your favorite cereal. Sometimes it was to choose what movie we were going to rent because we always had VCRs. So we could rent a movie. And I just remember you could read so many, according to how old you were, you read so many pages, or so many chapters, or so many books. You were a good reader.
There was one time I read 5 Trixie Belden books in one day.
In one day. Going after the reward.
Alrighty, and I think that will be all for today. Then we have a lot more questions to ask over time. So, see you next time.
Bye-bye. Love you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.